Hi everyone, today I'm showing you how to make a mug. What you want to start with is good clay. This clay just came out of the pug mill, so the first thing I'm going to do is wedge it. The reason you wedge your clay is that you want to get the air bubbles out. You're definitely using your muscle when you're doing this. You want to check whether or not it has bubbles in it. Looks pretty good. I'm flattening out a little bit because I'll be using this in the slab roller. This right here is our slab roller. I'm going to use it to make my clay a nice sheet that I can cut parts off for my mug. So the first thing I want to do is I want to flatten this edge a little bit because it's going to catch right under there, so I want this flattened. I'm also using a piece of canvas under the clay, and then I'll use another piece of canvas on top of the clay. That way I keep my blanket and the bottom part clean. Alright, next thing I do is I roll this. Please be careful. Now I have a nice size slab for my mug. I think this slab roller makes the slabs a little bit too thick, so I tend to add a piece of mat board. And I'll go ahead and cover the entire area there, and then I'll run it one more time. Alright, so this is what my slab looks like. I'm going to make my mug out of this. I'm going to move to a different table and show you the next steps. Alright, here's the slab. I'm going to do a couple of things before I make the mug, and I'll move that a little bit closer. When your clay comes out of the slab roller, it will have the texture of the canvas, and you will use a kidney scraper to smooth out that texture. And I already did it on this one a little bit, so it doesn't have that much of a texture left. Make sure you keep this clean, otherwise you just add texture to it that you might not want. And I'll do the same thing to the other side, so I'll lift this up and move it over, and I will do the same thing right here. This is my coffee cup template. I cut apart a Starbucks cup and made a template out of that. You'll see here where it says edge angle, and then this is the bottom of the mug. I actually have these ones that are a little bit more durable and a little bit flatter. They'll be easier to use. Now, as you can see, I'm not putting this right in the middle because that's not an efficient use of my materials. Other people could maybe use this for handles. There's the bottom here. Some of you might need to share your slabs. So I'll put this here because I think that's a good place for it. I'm going to grab my needle tool right here, and I'm going to go ahead and cut this. Now, this edge needs to be angled, and this edge needs to be angled as well. Okay. You need to imagine that this is a mug that will come together right there. I want this to overlap a little bit, and then I want this part to be angled. So when I put this on here, I will make this a little bit extra, I will make this a little bit extra, and then I'll create an angle on this side and another angle on that side. These I can cut straight. And I'll angle this one in this direction. You'll see that's a, this kind of an angle. Oops. There you go. And I will have a similar angle, but going in that very same direction over on this side. And this is not the most beautiful cut. You can also use a knife if you want cleaner cuts right there. I'm leaving the rest of the clay alone. I'm not going to ball all that up because I can use some of this for handles. I also need to create the circle. It's not going to quite fit there, but I think I'll put that here. So I have some extra here for a handle. So I'll cut my circle. So this is now the bottom of my mug. And I'll move this out of the way because we don't need it right now, but we'll need it later. Alright, so you'll see there's an angle here and an angle here, and when they go together, they'll fit on each other like that. What I'll want to do is I want to go ahead and score this part, and I'll do the same thing to this part right here. Another part I'm going to score is the bottom of my mug right here, because I want that mug to attach right here. So I'm going to go ahead and score that, because it's going to be much more difficult to score it later. So I'll do it right now, because then that circle will fit in here. So actually I might as well, while I'm scoring, go ahead and score this part as well. Alright, that's been scored. Next thing I'll do is I'll grab this rolling pin, because that's going to go right in between here as I'm building this. So I'm going to roll this part against this part right there, but I'll use a rolling pin in between there. So I'll lay this right on there. Oops, let me do that so you see that a little bit better. So now I'm laying these two parts on top of each other. Alright, I'm lifting that rolling pin off the table a little bit so I can press these two parts together. And you want to make sure that you press them together really well. You don't want them to come loose later. And then I'm going to go ahead and really smooth those two parts together well, because I don't want a seam there and I don't want them coming loose right there. So you'll see right here I want to smooth that out a little bit, and the same over here. I'll want to smooth this part out a little bit. And this is also a good time to be cleaning this up on the inside, because it's going to be much harder to do that once you've got a handle or you've got a bottom on there. So I'll go ahead and smooth that part together nicely too, and I'll actually grab a little bit of a tool for you. I've got just a cup with water here, and I like this tool a lot because it has kind of the rounded edge here, which kind of mimics the edge of a finger. So I'll use that to clean up the inside, just so I can get that seam smoothed out. Because you need to imagine having tea or coffee or chocolate milk in here, and you don't want an edge in there that stuff could get stuck in. As you can see, it's not perfectly circular yet, but right now I'm just kind of cleaning up edges a little bit. I'm going to do a lot of other things to this before I get to the fine tuning, but I just want to make sure that that seam is not really visible and that it's nice and sturdy, that it's not going to come apart in that place. I'm going to check on the other side, make sure the inside right here is nice and clean, and then I'll want to add a little bit more scoring right on the inside. I'll kind of add the scoring to the inside here. There we go. Alright, this has been scored already, and now I'm going to fit this inside of here. I might have to stretch this just a little bit. And some people like adding a little bit of water, or even a little bit of slip, which is watered down clay. And I'll add a little bit more scoring to this, because you really want those surfaces to fit well together. You don't want it to come loose right there. Alright, I think this is ready to stick in here. Stick it right there, and then I'm just going to push this together so I can make this a nice flat part. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it right side up, and we're really going to press it down at the bottom edges there. So right now, on the inside, there's definitely a seam, and I want to get rid of that seam. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab some clay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a little bit of clay, and I'm going to just make a tiny coil. I'm going to make it pretty thin, And I'm going to add a little bit of water to this because that gets dry pretty easily when it's so thin. I want this to go on the inside, so if this is the inside of my mug, I want that coil to go all the way on the inside, all the way around, so I can make a nice smooth transition from the wall to the bottom part. So I'll go ahead and I'll actually score this as well. And now I'm going to drop it inside the mug. And I'll use this tool to get it in there because it's kind of hard to get it right where it needs to be. I hope you can see this. I hope you can see that coil on the inside. Now it's kind of stuck in there. Now it's really hard for me to fit my hand in here and move all that around. And for some of your hands are just going to be too big to do that. So you'll be using probably this tool or some other ones that have a nice rounded edge to them. Because you want to smooth it out. You don't want any crevices there or cracks. You want it to be nice and smooth so liquids don't get stuck in the middle there. This will take a while because it's not that easy to do that. I hope you can see I made some progress there, but I'll need to spend a little bit more time really making that smooth on the inside. Once you've got that smooth, you also want to take care of this part. It's nice and flat right here, and I'd like to keep it that way. I try not to push on the inside of this because that will make it so it kind of, curves, and I don't want it to curve. I want that to stay nice and flat. So I'm just kind of smoothing these parts together. You definitely want to make sure that you don't have any air bubbles in there, so you'll want to push that in a little bit just to make sure that everything will stick together nicely. I might even smooth this out a little bit. Alright, I'm pretty happy with that. And I can always smooth everything out later. Right now I'm just making sure everything's attached. There's no air pockets in there anywhere. There's no cracks that liquid could seep through. And I'm going to make sure that the inside here is the same thing, where it's nice and smooth. And this part is probably the hardest part, is getting this nice and smooth. And we do have some different size mugs. If you want to do something a little bit larger, where it's a little bit handier to get your hand in, you can do that, because this one's pretty complicated to get your hand in and to really smooth that out. Alright. The next thing you'll want to do is make a handle for your mug. And there's lots of options that you have with handles. I'll just show a very simple one. So this is one of the pieces that's left over from my slab, and I'll go ahead and I'll use the knife for this. Make a nice straight line. If you want to use a ruler for this to get a straight line, you could do that. You could just grab a ruler, make it nice and straight. If you care about these things. Something like that. Alright, I'll cut it right here. And then this will be my handle. I can make it just this shape. I can attach it to my mug like this. Some people like having it, with curly edges. I'm going to keep mine pretty simple. I'm just going to attach it to my mug. I'll have this right here, just like that, and like that. Here, I'll kind of lay this down so you can see it. So it will look something, so it will look something like this. Alright, so what I need to do is add a little bit of water. This clay is getting a little bit dry. And the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that I make those edges nice and smooth, because those are hard to fix later. So you kind of want to do some of that stuff now. So especially the inside of that handle is really hard to get to with your hands afterwards. So go ahead and smooth the edges. Then I'll determine where this goes. I'll want this. Let's see, I'll put it by where my seam is, because that's not that pretty anyway. And I'll be mushing it around a little bit with the clay. So I'll put it right there. And I will go ahead and score this. And then I will go ahead and score this part right there. That's where it's going to attach. I'm going to make it come at a little bit of an angle. So now I have an angle right there. I'll score that too. And I will attach those two parts together. And I'll really push pretty hard because you do not want your handle to come loose. So I'll smooth that together nicely. I'll move this a little bit closer so you can see this a little bit better. So I'm smoothing this together. You can see that the clay is kind of cracking. It's a little bit on the dry side, and I'm making it do some things it might not like so much. I'm grabbing a little bit of water, smoothing that together a little bit. I'm really pressing hard on this part because I don't want this handle to come loose. It's going to be a little bit of a dent there, but I can fix that later. Alright, and now this part is going to go right there. And that one I'm going to just attach straight there and then make it a nice thumbprint right there. So I'm taking this clay right here, moving it out, scoring it because that's where it's going to get attached. Don't worry about scoring it a little bit too much there. You can clean that up later, but you really want to make sure you score this well because that handle is going to be very fragile, so you want to make very sure that you put it on there really tight. Alright, right now I'm really pressing down with my finger, and now I'm going to start smoothing all this into my clay. Sorry. Now I'm really going to press the clay and make sure I don't have a bunch of seams right there. Alright, you see that here kind of got that clay doing things I don't want it to do, but I'll go ahead and smooth all that together, and I might even just make this go straight from here to here, which is not something you need to do, but that seems to be what this mug wants to be doing to me. And now here you can see I've got some edges right here that I need to add some clay to make sure that it all blends together nicely, and I'll definitely add a little tiny coil right there, so make that extra sturdy because that's going to be the fragile part of your mug. So right now here I have a little bit of clay. I'll go ahead and make that coil right there. I'll use this piece and I'll drop it right in there. That's still, that part's still scored. Now I'm pushing this clay down here. I definitely don't want an air bubble in there, so I'm really pressing it down in there, and then I can start smoothing those parts out. Alright, and I'll press this down in this direction so I have some clay here too. Again, I don't want to trap any air in there, so I'm smoothing this out and really pushing it down so I get any possible air pockets out of there. To this point, you'll want to clean it up. I've got some edges here that need smoothing, I've got parts here that need smoothing, and then I just want to work on the basic shape of it. Clean this up a little bit in here, but I might wait, leave it alone for about 10 minutes and then get back to it later and really clean it up. If you want to put texture on it, you might want to do this now. Put some designs on there. This might be a good time if you want to use underglazes. That's about it. Good luck.